Hello, everyone. This video is going to be about issues other than those that have recently afflicted us. I do want to say, though, at least at the beginning, that in light of the recent disagreement, if one wants to refer to it as such, a lot of shocking stuff has come to the fore. First, from Rocky Mystery himself, I think it was pretty underhanded of him to make use of personal information that I chose to disclose. Not even to, I mean, interpreted things into it. And when I do disclose personal information, mind you, I do it to the benefit of my viewers. So I think I might help them. And then he made in one of his older responses to a video where he talks about this and tries to use it to discredit me. That was pretty foul and underhanded. I've yet to receive an apology from him in that respect. But what I think is even far, far worse is some of these comments. Really, the caliber of the comments. I mean, I've been, mind you, I've never ever used language towards the opposition in such a way to no one actually, and yet I've been called an asshole. I've been called quote star faggot. I've been called all sorts of things. Now that's where the fun ends when you just resort to blank insults. But it does bespeak the nature of these people's character. They clearly are lacking in it, especially since most of the comments eventually degenerate into name calling, something I've never done. And well, it's a pity. But I will say that if I see comments directed either towards me or my subscribers, where it really just degenerates into throwing blank insults at them, name calling, be it asshole or quote star faggot, and eventually I will block you. I mean, I have a high degree of tolerance towards for that sort of thing, as I've said many times. But at some point in time, is enough. And I think that, and I mean, it's just clear that that sort of thing is not to be tolerated because you'd think people are civilized, but apparently the patriarchs and traditionalists are not. Anyway, let's move on to completely different issues. So a little while back, I made a video about gauging your own kryptonite stress tolerance levels with regards to women. Emotionally speaking, how much resistance you have. And recent events, not necessarily my own, but a work colleague, I'll talk about that in a second, got me thinking. I was thinking, it might be nice or helpful to make a video about work-related distress and things like that. And this is what I'm doing here. Well, basically, let me just say at the outset, the thesis is that because men are disinclined, to put it mildly, to seek help from external sources, we often internalize a lot of things. But the thing that's interesting about male internalization, I've noticed, at least with myself and others, is that there isn't necessarily a reflective aspect to it. And I want to start by giving an example from my own life. Here, me disclosing semi-personal information. Well, let's hope no one tries to use it to, quote-unquote, discredit me and my positions. Anyway, so a while back, when I was living in Asia, I had moved to Asia for the sole purpose of saving money towards acquiring my first master's degree. I've never taken government loans, and I refuse to do so. At best, I took a loan out for a few K from a friend, and I paid it back immediately to him. But I've never taken loans out, and I didn't want to do it in that case either. And so, I basically worked 2 years nonstop. In 2 years, I had maybe 4 or 5 days off, not even combined. Just if you, not even following each other, just kind of added up. I had a tyrannical boss who was skimming money off of our taxes, and it was a big nightmare. Anyway, and so I really, but I had this goal in mind that I needed to save a fixed amount of money. And what happened due to various circumstances, yes, there was actually a woman involved as well. I don't know if I mentioned this one, but in this case, it was someone I thought I had a relationship with, and turned out after a year that she was engaged, and her fiance was coming, and I had no idea about this stuff. Anyway, usual stuff. That did contribute a bit to the stress, but no, mostly it was just being overworked, and I just didn't know when to stop because I just thought money, 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 and so I ended up in a situation where I was essentially living from my paycheck, which was a pretty dismal existence, I have to say. And yeah, so but I had this singular goal in mind, and as a result of that, long story short, the insomnia that I've had since time immemorial, since my teens, reached a point where for a while at least, I was completely dependent on sleep medication. It wasn't even helping that much. I was getting basically 4 to 6 hours of sleep every 3 days. I mean, in a total. So I was running like a zombie. I was pretty non-functional. And I have to say that had I taken a step back and said, Stardust, why don't you just take a couple of weeks off, or just quit the job and find a new one, or, been reasonable about it, maybe it would not have gone that far. And interestingly enough, sadly enough, my insomnia, although it's improved since several years ago leaving Asia, it's never gotten to the point, not that it's ever been good, prior to my sojourn in Asia. And so I think I've had lasting health consequences as a result of basically overworking myself in a pretty shitty environment. I think those two combinations. So I'm not just rambling on about this for no reason. I think it's really important that men keep in mind what their individual stress tolerance levels are towards work. As I said before, different men have a different emotional capacity with regards to their kryptonite resistance with women. But it should be even more evident that different men have different stress tolerance levels regarding work, physical labor, and all sorts of things like that. So, for example, I've been remiss in it in the last couple of months of getting back into it. But I have always enjoyed, not always, but for my late 20s and 30s, enjoyed lifting weights. And different people have different recovery times. Some people can naturally recover, in a day. Other people need 2 days. Some people can train every day, and so on and so forth. Just like a marathon runner, some are marathon runners, some are not. Some people can tolerate a very, very high intense level of work without crashing. But the thing we really need to emphasize and stress is that, especially men, eventually there will come a point where the machinery is just not working anymore. I've seen it happen. I've seen men with very high stress tolerance levels just fall apart. And when it falls apart, we get something that's commonly called burnout syndrome. Burnout syndrome, it's kind of an umbrella term, but it basically encompasses just you're burnt out, you can't do anything anymore. And in many cases, it takes weeks, if not months, to recover from it. When I left Asia, I was almost certainly burnt out. My health was a total mess. I had gained unnecessary weight. My sleeping patterns were beyond horrific. And it probably took a good year for me to not completely, but to recover the point where I was more or less functional. But so that's a real danger, that men do not estimate correctly their ability to tolerate stress. And I think I want to mention that motivation is a key. Yes, in my particular case, I was working towards a singular goal of saving up an X amount of money to pay for a degree so I wouldn't have to rely on anyone. Okay, that's one thing. But many men in relationships, married men, work to provide for their families, yes, but also to, of course, cater to the female. They work their asses off. I have such a friend. I mentioned him before. He is deeply involved in the Rhode Island State Budget Office. The guy, he has months during budget season where he just doesn't go home, and he likes his work. But even I think now it's beginning to wear on him, especially in light of his recent pseudo-divorce and things like that. So everyone has a limit. And we really need to be aware of that, in particular because, let's face it, the world at large is not concerned with men's health. And at the end of the day, you as an individual man are the person that needs to kind of look after yourself. there aren't other people out there who are going to help you out. If you're feeling ill, you need to register that with yourself, or if you're feeling depressed or any number of things, and really take that into account. Sometimes you really have to work, but I think there are a lot of cases where we become fixated on certain goals or even money, and then we forget that we possibly are damaging our long-term health by neglecting important breaks from work and just R&R and just sitting back and thinking about things. In some ways, I think it's much easier to just fall into the grind of things and just get lost in it all. But there's a real danger. Most recently, the reason why I'm making this video is because I have a friend and colleague at work, someone whom I like a lot, and he's an incredibly assiduous man. I mean, he just does incredible amounts of work, and he trains every day at the gym, and has been doing it for 15 plus years, which I find just astounding. I mean, even exhausted after work. But recently, because of the fitness exposition, he's reaching his limit, I think, and he does have a week off in the coming week, but he basically wanted to do nothing. Perfectly understandable. But his girlfriend is insisting they go on some holiday, and a holiday you'd think would be R&R, but it involves 7 to 8 hours of driving for a total of maybe 14, 16 back and forth, and it sounds a lot more stress than it is an R&R. And I think in his particular case, this is a man who I have great respect for, but I think he needs sometimes to think of himself, because he's so beholden to many, many obligations, familial ones. He doesn't have a family, but his sister and mother, and work and many other things. He's the kind of guy that tries to do a million things at once, and it doesn't always work out. And so it made me really think. Maybe this is a perfect example of sometimes you do need to think about your own well-being, and because clearly, as is evidenced by his woman dragging him off to some holiday he doesn't want to go to. We often forget this, and it's not just women. I mean, like I said, men have a tend to become men's greatest asset in many ways can become men's greatest liability. One thing that I think more men have much more readily than women is passion. I don't mean sexual, like sticking your dick in a vagina. I mean desire to pursue something, or the desire to invest a large amount of time, not necessarily just for monetary profit, but just in activities that you might enjoy. Like I'm currently rendering a video along with music on my other channel, and it took quite a while to do it all, playing the game and then rendering. So no, I think we do that, but because we become nigh obsessive in our pursuit of, say, success, whatever that activity might be, we often lose track of what's happening to ourselves during that process. And I think it's very important to be aware of that. You don't, in today's day and age, you cannot afford to run yourself into the ground. And like I said, there's no one else looking out for you. And so it's important to bear that in mind. And I think the older you are, the more aware you might become. But for men who haven't, I hate to use the term, gotten it yet, there basically is an inherent bias in say the health industry towards the well-being of women and against men. These are things that are important and should be borne in mind. We all have different stress tolerance levels, and ultimately, I think your health is something that probably is the most important thing. Remember, to yourself, you're not a utility. You're a valuable human being. So you need to take care of yourself. This is an important lesson I've learned. If and when, for example, I decide to go back to Asia, I will properly gauge the job, and if need be, I do have certain financial goals I want to achieve in the next few years, but I'm not going to pursue it in a relentless fashion, which really just ran me into the ground. I mean, my health since then has just not been back to where it was. So, we as men really need to be acutely aware of this. Um, the and then that requires reflection. And I think, so, as for my viewers and subscribers, I think all of you are already there. You're all reflective enough um, to see all of these things. But sometimes we just need a reminder. Um, I remember when I had my burnout, no one was telling me I need to take some time off. No one gave a shit, and and I just thought I need to save this money. I need to save this money. Yeah, I think ultimately it would have been worth it to take a couple of weeks or even months off, and just it would have taken longer. Who knows? I might have had other insights into things that But I was so caught up with just making as much money as I could in order to achieve a certain goal, which the goal itself was a bit. Wouldn't say a letdown, but it was. It's always like that. I mean, this is kind of brandly, I know, but when you actually get your degree, it's never quite as spectacular as you dreamt it would be. But anyway, no. So no, this is the point. It's really we really need to take care of ourselves, and every man needs to gauge individually what his stress levels are. For example, I could never do what my friend and colleague does. I mean, if I'm really tired from work and just didn't sleep enough, I can't, do an hour of intensive training. I could, but I'd collapse. I've tried it a few times. These are things that are important that need to be borne in mind. And yeah, that's enough rambling now. In the future, I might indeed continue addressing some of these issues regarding traditionalism and what have you, and a possibility in the future as well. I sent Barbara Russell a PM. What I've been thinking about doing, I haven't contacted Girl Writes What yet, is translating important videos from other MRAs into German and then presenting them in video format. It would help if I get the transcripts. If I can't, then then I could just write it down. And that's very, very time consuming, so I have to see how that works out. But I think that's something I could do for the YouTube, for the community and for my viewers and for everyone else, because I think Girl Writes What and Barb Boras are my favorite YouTuber, not going his own way YouTuber, and Girl Writes What has a lot of stuff that sort of spans bridges, and so yeah, translating that and the most important ones, I think, because it's a lot of material. So that's definitely a possibility in the near to not distant future. And anyway, that's it for now, and thanks for watching.